Really not easy being a Gen Z these days. My niece recently got an offer out of college, and the salary that she was offered was actually about the same amount that I got when I had graduated years ago, about 17 years ago. So imagine the offer being around 40,000 USD, and then if you take into consideration federal and state taxes, take home might be, say, less than 32,000 USD per year. And then if you think about that, that means around less than $3,000 per month. But if you're living in New York City, rent might cost you, say, $1,000, and that's if you share really small space with someone. And then about with utilities, metro cards, and just basic food and whatnot, you might end up with nothing at the end of the month. So we're talking about not being able to go out for dinner in places because, say, a typical dinner might be $50 to $60 per head, and then you add in tip and tax, that might be, say, $60 to $70 if you go to a, just a standard place. Definitely can't afford Uber, and in fact you would need to get a metro card and take the subway everywhere. And that's without paying back her student loans. So if she starts paying back student loans now, that actually might mean she'll end up with, say, $500 deficit per month. So why are Gen Zs now hanging out at home and living at their parents'? It's because they can't afford it. Because they can't even make ends meet now, there's no way they can actually save money for even, rainy days or emergency funds, and they're going to have to rely on family. Unless companies offer 401k retirement funds, and a lot of companies are starting not to, there's no way they can start saving up money. So that means, it makes a lot of sense putting $200 to $500 away monthly and waiting 40 years later to become millionaires just by retiring by retirement funds alone, but it's really not possible at this salary. Of course, it depends on the job. So your salary might not be static. So if you were in corporate like I was when I first got out of college, my first job was, say, 40,000 a year, but actually by the second year I was actually making 50,000. And then over the years I started making more and more money through promotions and salary increases. But not every single job has sort of an upward movement. So there are jobs where there's a ceiling. So I have friends that work in IT, and yes, they might make more money starting out, so for example, as an in-house IT, rather than, say, a developer at a tech company. They might start out with, say, 60,000 USD a year, and then they end up around 120,000, and that's actually sort of ceiling, and they can't go further. So I highly suggest to all Gen Zs and those that aren't really making a lot of money is to live below their means. So if she only makes about $32,000 now, my suggestion is not to rent. So where she can, to live at home, what Gen Zs are doing are actually smart. Live at home for 2 to 3 years, save up some money, and then eventually move out when you're ready. And avoid expenditures like luxury goods or even seasonal clothing, because honestly, do you really need this many things in your life? It might sound really harsh, but it's only the first couple years of your life, and starting out from college is really never easy. When I started out from college, I never had coffee and ordered from places like a Starbucks. I always actually made my own coffee, carried my own mug, or got the 99-cent coffee from a cart. And instead of living in Manhattan, I chose to live in actually quite a rough area in Bushwick in Brooklyn when I first started out, where I barely paid any rent. In 2 years out of college, I had actually saved $10,000, mostly because I wasn't spending that money on rent and I wasn't making any expensive purchases. So that first $10,000 was actually my first fund that I used to buy stocks. So good luck, Gen Zs. I know it's not easy starting out, but I hope you can see that everyone starts out this way, and at some point in your life, 15 years down the line, you might become that executive and have a retirement fund saved away.